voice of FinTech.
Welcome to Voice of FinTech, a podcast mapping out the Swiss and global FinTech scene, connecting FinTech enthusiasts with startups, incubators, accelerators, business angels and VCs, and incumbents interested in partnerships. Voice of FinTech will help you navigate the FinTech ecosystem. Here you can listen to the startup founder stories, what investors and incumbents are looking for when dealing with startups, and find out more about resources provided by incubators and accelerators. My name is Rudy Falad and I'll be hosting this podcast. Hello and welcome to Voice of FinTech. Today we're joined by the new head of F10, Gerrit, and new participants in the batch that they are having, Andreas, Els, and Sabrina. And we're going to talk about their startups, what the program offers, what's new, and have a bit of an exchange about what can be done in FinTech this year, which turned out to be a different kind of year that we all hoped for maybe in January, but we will focus on opportunities. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining. And as I said, let me start with maybe Gerrit. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? How did you get to do what you do today, being a new head of F10?
Okay, thanks, Rudy. And hi, everyone. I'm originally German, but live already since 10 years in Zurich. And while I've started my career in banking, I early on got infected with the entrepreneurial virus. At some point, turned entrepreneur and really loved it. And since then, I had 4 startup experiences. One I co-founded myself. One where I took over the lead when the founding CEO left. And actually, with that last startup, I also participated in a FinTech Accelerator program in London and had really great experience there and received great support. So this year, somehow I felt it was time to connect these dots and give back to the ecosystem. And so, taking over the lead of F10 Zurich was an exciting opportunity. And now I have a super motivated team that's burning as much as I do to help both like the great entrepreneurs and connect them with our corporate partners to get especially the banking and the insurance industry forward.
Great to hear. And Els and Sabrina, you are participants in F10. Again, how did you get to where you are today? Why are you entrepreneurs?
Well, you could actually call us intrapreneurs because both Sabrina and I started our career at Baloise Insurance a couple of years ago. We are personally very much behind the vision of Baloise Group to unburden the client in every stage of their life and also to put the customer at the center of every decision. And in order to do so, the company promotes innovation and stimulates employees to think along about new solutions. Because if every member of the Baloise family looks at a customer problem from a different point of view, together we are ready for the future. But to answer your question about why we are entrepreneurs or intrapreneurs, we just get so much energy from working out something from start to finish that is really based on a real problem. And it is very motivational also to see an idea slowly come to life, especially when you really believe in it.
All right. Then Andreas, you're from Stableton, right? And you're a serial entrepreneur. So how did that come about? I mean, starting business after business.
Yeah, thanks. In my case, like all of my family members are entrepreneurs, so it seems to be in the genes. And throughout my life, I was always very curious and already studied entrepreneurship in university. And but being a serial entrepreneur is kind of just a label. But every business is different, and you will need to learn so many new things. You will work with new people all over the time. You'll need to overcome new problems and challenges over again. But the good thing is that as a serial entrepreneur, you kind of know that you will be capable of all those things that will eventually hit you. So that means especially dealing with problems, riding the ride from being super enthusiastic to almost full failure and back. And also you kind of know that you need to have a special mindset and a strong personality because you need to be hardworking, flexible, and a fast decision maker, but you will also be forced to make hard decisions and learn to be strict and say no. And you'll hear so many different opinions, thousands of no's, feedbacks and statistics that will likely predict failure already just before you start. And that's the most important thing, and I think that's what I have, is that you have to really keep going and not lose your vision and stay strong and persist and be really persistent with your goals.
Right. That's good to hear. So very inspirational. This is what we're trying to do here. So coming back to Gerrit, and I wanted to know what's new at F10 in Zurich in particular. Of course, you launched a new program in Singapore and in Spain, but in Zurich, what's going on and what's in store for you for the rest of the year and the rest of this batch?
Maybe sometimes during these times, the question for new, I think part of it or part of the answer always needs to be we're dealing with the same things that challenge us like most others, whether it's programs, other programs, whether it's corporates, whether it's startups. So, I mean, Corona has been definitely also a challenge for us. And I think it's a constant learning curve. Where, as you know, accelerator programs are, or until this year, have been living, especially around the events during which they bring together the cohorts of startups, but also like with any other partner or investor. And now we're actually, I mean, in the case of F10, we are still betting on a hybrid approach. So we say the startups that can and want to participate in person, we definitely want to use or give this opportunity as long as possible. However, at the same time, we also need to give the opportunity for the ones that maybe for travel bans cannot attend or that don't feel safe enough to participate. And that's definitely, I would say, a challenge, because you quickly realize that hybrid events or organizing hybrid events actually means organizing two events at the same time. And I think that's something that requires both, like from a attention level, quite some more or a higher level, and at the same time also our technical skills are also evolving in how to provide these events. And at the same time, Corona has been also quite a strong reminder how much we need each other. So I mean, like as humans, like one the other, but also among business partners. And I think that has been also we have been using this time also to inquire with our corporate partners what we're doing well, what we're not doing well. And then one conclusion has been that we also need to get the corporate partners much closer and facilitate also actually the cross-industry exchange. So not only with the startups, but also among the partners. And the last thing maybe has been also that, as an accelerator, your tendency has been always to focus on these super intensive programs where the startups are put through. However, it's also natural, especially in our industries with banking and insurance, that a lot of the relationships that you start off during such a program take much longer until they materialize in some business. So, I mean, therefore, what we are now also going to emphasize much stronger is actually like this post-program alumni relationship management, where for both sides, so for the corporates and the startups, it's of benefit if you continue to support, to make sure that the connection stays active, that both sides are aware of what's happening at the other, to then really make it a long-term relationship and a real ecosystem, as we have it already always requested. And at the same time, the international expansion that you just mentioned, that's now also one factor that's more and more gaining relevance, but where we need to ensure that there's a balance between leveraging the international access for startups and for the corporates, and at the same time keeping the focus really on the local ecosystem as a Zurich hub.
Right. Great to hear. Thank you, Gerrit. And turning over to Els and Sabrina, you are obviously international members of the cohort or of the batch at F10. based in Antwerp and part of Baloise. So what is your venture? Can you describe what is Gold or Goud, right? I think in Dutch, trying to solve. What is the problem that you're focusing on, and why is it worth solving as well?
Well, let's illustrate that with an example. Let's travel in time. So you are 75 years old. You've always gone wherever you wanted, whenever you wanted, but now you're no longer able to do so. You depend on your friends, your family, public transport, and these options do not always meet your needs. Some are, for example, too expensive, others not flexible enough, or maybe you're left out because you don't meet the acceptance criteria of that service, and that makes you less active than you actually want to be. Well, this is exactly the issue we are trying to tackle. And research also shows that there is a huge drop in mobility between the age of 75 and 80, and that a car is the preferred means of transportation among the European seniors. And when they cannot drive their own car anymore, or they don't feel comfortable doing so any longer, they rarely switch to another type of transportation. And this shows that stopping to drive leads to immobility and in turn leads to isolation and loneliness, unfortunately.
All right, but how does it work then? I mean, so let's say I'm 75, in a few weeks. So how is that going to work? What's your solution?
So with Goud, we want to help fight loneliness and contribute to safer traffic. Goud will provide that affordable and flexible transport for elderly, and that with a personal touch. So our service differentiates itself by offering some extras, such as helping the elderly where necessary. For example, carrying the groceries inside or replacing a light bulb. And in a later stage, we would also like to introduce some trips for small groups. So how do we want to do this? We want to help fight that loneliness by matching the elderly with young retirees as their driver, because both parties are looking for social contact and companionship. That way, we combine the pleasant with the useful. We also want to motivate the elderly to remain active and curious. They choose where they want to go and when, because we would like them to stay in charge of their own mobility.
How is this relevant, and why is Baloise supporting this?
Yes, of course, indeed. So we as an insurance company want to go further than only the insurance. So we want to go beyond insurance. And this is a very relevant topic these days, because at this moment, 19% of the Belgian population is older than 65. And by 2046,
wow.
It will even exceed 25%. So due to the aging of the population, more and more elderly will definitely need such a service to preserve life quality. And in addition, we also believe that the pandemic will only enlarge the loneliness issue, and the need of a personal means of transportation will even increase, in our opinion. So therefore, we think we are in the right position to make such a service to also an alternative solution for the elderly who can't get an insurance anymore if they grow older and are not comfortable anymore driving their own car.
Right. So very interesting. I like that a lot because obviously we all have parents, and they will get to that age. So we need to find some solution, right? Especially if you don't live in the same city, as a lot of people don't do these days. So, and Andreas, turning over to you again, you said obviously that founding a business, every time it was a different business, but you're a serial entrepreneur. So how does that feel doing it again? What are the similarities though? I mean, every business is different, but I guess maybe you get the same adrenaline rush when you're trying to start a new business, or not?
Yeah, so I mean, there are definitely advantages of doing it again. First, as mentioned previously, the challenges are always new. You can't overcome those. They're always new. But on the other hand, you learn a lot from the lessons. And because as an entrepreneur, you're learning a lot, something that you would never learn in a normal career. So you always naturally have a lot of lessons learned, both positive and negative ones. And you're obviously keeping the positive lessons and outcomes and trying to mitigate the other ones. Otherwise, because you're dealing with different topics and different stakeholders, such as with an investor view, a customer view, a product view, you also get just a generally broader view about the different perspectives of the different stakeholders, and thus for the next venture, it also helps to optimize and perfect your business model, taking into account much better the different perspectives and creating really win-win situations for all parties involved.
Right. So let's explain a little bit about the Stableton, right? It's a digital marketplace for alternative assets or alternative investments. Sorry. So what does that mean? How does that work?
Right. With our managed marketplace for alternative investments, we're effectively solving both a business and a tech problem. So the business problem consists of making a very fragmented, hard to access market with large minimums and very difficult regulations to enter alternative investments much easier for investors. So in effect, there's a concept called the aggregation theory, which everyone knows from the likes of Airbnb, Uber, or Netflix, which offer a very convenient and curated way to access supply. And in our case, the supply are alternative investments. And the main point of differentiation is to create a great user experience. And the tech problem which we are tackling is that currently in the distribution and investment of alternative investments, all is really difficult with paperwork, endless calls, and physical meetings. So we are including a lot of data and analytics. We are offering an asynchronous way of dealing and interacting, both digital and online, but also especially personalized and curated. So you can also think of Amazon of alternative investments. And the outcome of both dimensions is effectively a super strong value proposition to both investors and providers of alternative investments, where investors can expand their investment options and universe, exactly like the largest and most sophisticated investors can. And on the other hand, the providers, such as managers or fintechs and distributors, they can effectively and efficiently generate new leads and assets for their products. So a win-win situation for everyone involved.
Right. But when you say alternative investments, being in Switzerland and coming maybe from an incumbent's perspective, it begs the question, who are your target clients and what's the kind of interaction with the regulators, right? So how does that work for you? I mean, who can invest on your platform and how are you regulated if you are? Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as a two-sided marketplace, we've got the two sides. One is the investor and the other side is the provider of alternative investments. Over the time, we are going to further develop the model into an N-sided marketplace, also including service providers and due diligence providers and secondary liquidity providers, etc. But right now, the investors, they consist of an end client, which we approach via two distinct go-to-market models. One model is the indirect distribution, where we distribute to financial intermediaries, such as banks, wealth managers, and family offices that introduce our products or our offerings in the marketplace to their clients. And then we've got the direct distribution model, where we target private clients directly. And most of our products are reserved for private qualified clients, but we also do have some products available for retail clients.
Right, that's what I meant. So the qualified clients are what in Switzerland?
There are different types of qualified clients. Either they're really rich, or they are experienced and rich enough, or they are clients of a wealth manager and are in a permanent advisory or discretionary relationship with a wealth manager, for example. And thus, when we distribute via a wealth manager, in most cases, they can buy them for their end clients, even if they are themselves not a private qualified client, but they're becoming one just because their wealth manager is making the decisions for them.
I see. That's clear. So, but why did you choose to participate in F10 program?
The F10 program is really kind of the standout program here in Switzerland. When it comes to early stage fintech incubation and acceleration programs, there is really no better program in Switzerland, but probably also not in the world. So that's likely one of the best in the world. And also, no, really, it's, Switzerland is, despite its small size, really the hub for financial intermediaries. So for example, it's, there are different statistics, but Switzerland counts among the largest markets for private wealth. So we are just right at the right place with our business, but also where F10 is active. So we participated for a number of reasons. One is the powerful network via the coaches, mentors, and corporates, where it's really easy to access the who is who in fintech and finance in general in Switzerland. The second thing is the opportunity to work with those high-profile rosters of corporate members, such as Six Exchange, Julius Baer, Baloise, ZKB, TX, and many more. Furthermore, it's the label of quality to have F10, as a milestone in your path, but also as an investor for future funding rounds. And finally, the content of the program also helps to improve our offering and how we work on a daily basis. Whereas ourselves, we are already quite experienced and far in terms of product strategy and traction, but still for any other startup that's just starting freshly, it's just really tremendously valuable.
Right. And from your perspective, Els and Sabrina, why did you choose to participate in F10 program?
Yeah, as Andreas already said, Baloise Insurance is a corporate member of F10. So they're trying to help their corporate members to get ahead of the competition, let's say. And Baloise is a company who invests in its employees by constantly offering opportunities to step out of your comfort zone. And that stimulates creativity and allows you to also grow as a human being. In fact, that's what led us to F10. Last year, Baloise Group launched an international innovation pipeline concerning mobility. And Sabrina and I decided to submit our idea. And that's where our adventure began. We were selected to further research and develop our solution for elderly within the F10 program. And therefore, we got a chance to temporarily step out of our daily jobs to be fully focused on making our idea come to life.
Okay, great. Lucky.
Yeah,
so,
indeed.
So how do you measure success of the partnerships with early stage companies, or, maybe look at it in a different way? One of the appeals of the F10 program is for the startups to get in touch with the corporates, right? You have a corporate member already, like Baloise, or there may be others. So how do you seize the success, maybe first from Gerrit's perspective and then from others? When you graduate from the program, what would you like to have accomplished by then?
Yeah, so I would say there's, of course, like maybe some overarching objectives, but in the end, the objectives are partly differing per both like corporate members as per startups. As Andreas also already pointed out, the objectives are of course different ones. Maybe if you're an entrepreneur who knows already like how to start a company, but who especially can leverage such a platform for access to corporate members and like meeting them in a non-sales pitch environment. But like if you were completely like looking for KPIs, definitely things like number of collaborations between our startups and the corporations. However, like in the early stage program, sometimes also like even the number of like qualitative engagements with the corporates as a start of really like this relationship cycle that you have, or customer life cycle is already like a good measure. And at the same time, we're also aware that, for example, some of these metrics that we need to measure ourselves on, like with our corporate partners, are only achievable like over a longer time horizon. So we're also therefore like starting to track this more beyond the programs to also like reconnect and measure like the collaboration, the interaction, not only in this short time window that we have maybe like a high touch relationship with either side.
Great. So I would assume this is the same for you, Els and Sabrina, and for Andreas. How many contacts you have with the corporate members and POCs, etc. But what I also like about F10, and just remind everyone, I guess I've been mentoring at F10 as well, so I'm a bit biased potentially. But what I like about it is that you do deliver content other than networking and providing access to the corporate members, because my feeling is that sometimes the universities they lack in terms of content and about entrepreneurial finance, for example, right? And the practical skills you need as a founder of a startup from a business perspective, maybe from a technical perspective and coding, it's all there. But from a business perspective, you have lots of master classes that you provide. So maybe anything from Els and Sabrina and Andreas that you could add, like what do you expect from the program, which we maybe haven't talked about yet?
The masterclasses really help us put the theory into practice, so you get a really broad perspective or a high-level introduction to what you would need to do. And then it's always up to us to then put that theory into practice. So that's very, very helpful. And as Andreas already said, the networking is really a very great opportunity. There have been a lot of people who have reached out to us from areas that we wouldn't have expected before starting this program. So that's really a great help.
And maybe if I also may add, a part of the collaboration. For a lot of young companies that participate in the program, you have two urgent needs. Customer and proving your market fit is of course number one. But as that's especially in FinTech and InsurTech or financial services and insurance industry may take partly a bit longer. You need some funding to actually bridge up to that point. So investors are then one of the other two big metrics. That's something that we of course therefore also emphasizing, working on, connecting, but also measuring then what is the funding success of the startups out of the program and related. Then some derived KPIs survival rate of the startups, and then of course growth in the mid and long term.
Okay, understood. I just wanted to ask you also. Maybe let's take a step back and look at the things from a bigger picture perspective. And obviously, we are going through pandemic in different countries in a different way. Financial services and or insurance has been changing or have been changing for quite some time. Where do you see the key innovation focus for both FinTech and InsurTech and related kind of innovations? And has any of it been impacted also positively by the pandemic? In other words, accelerated perhaps, right?
The obvious impacts that the pandemic had, of course, was that any company, including the banks and insurances, have been made aware how important it is to have a digital channel, both for internal communication as well as for client engagement. And I think so. Therefore, anything that is helping in this omni-channel context, both to deliver or to communicate, but also to assess risks or to comply with regulation for these digital channels, I think has definitely received some booster. But I think, of course, the pandemic is only one factor that everyone maybe in the short term has to deal, or in the short and near term has to deal with. On the other side, we need to look at, of course, also a bit on the Swiss market specificities maybe. And there I've seen quite a bit of time lag, for example, for some of the trends that have maybe come over from the US to Europe, and where Switzerland sometimes had a bit more of an observing position, and then with a time lag of 2-3 years, sometimes some topics come into the market. Similar to what we are still waiting for, open banking, something that has been started here with a market-driven initiative coordinated by SIX, but currently tackling first the business banking. But I think these open banking and cross-industry use cases that are facilitated by it, I think that's still something to come and where there's big potential. And on the other side, the use of data is still at a very nascent stage, where for risk and compliance topics, data are already quite strongly used. But for anything like front service related, client service, distribution, I think it's still like in a super tiny stage. And the same, AI, I think is used already like for back office and middle office applications. But I think there's plenty of room for those to expect a lot of innovation also here in Switzerland.
All right, then Andreas, from your perspective?
So there are definitely a lot of key innovation areas in our space. For example, the value creation is more and more taking place in private markets, whereas the public markets are rather expensive, interest rates are low, and therefore there is a limited number of options for the typical investor to invest in traditional assets. Therefore, more and more investors are actually requesting access to those non-traditional options. And also generally, I think everywhere in the consumer space that you're seeing, the large winners are really the ones that create great user experience, functionality, and convenience for the end client. So thus also financial services are now changing at an ever-increasing speed that you can see with the emergence of neobanks, but also access to alternatives via, let's say, different vertically focused fintechs. And we are making this access even easier and curated with our offering. And especially in today's environment with so much new tech, but also a lot of smart minds everywhere, there just cannot be areas which remain inefficient with unhappy customers anymore. And so we are aiming to be the winner in our space, in the space of alternatives.
Okay, and Els and Sabrina, any thoughts about the future? I know that the future seems a big universe for you, but still.
Yeah, indeed. We also think that digital transformation is indeed an important factor, but we also believe that the personal approach will become even more important in the future. Well, that's what we see in our surroundings, because companies with, on the one hand, a high customer loyalty, and on the other hand, the flexibility to adapt their business to the needs of the market, they keep standing strong while others go down, unfortunately. And therefore, I think building an even stronger customer relationship will remain or become the main priority in the future.
The pandemic also causes a lot of business to fail, which then in turn will also lead to a new wave of innovations. And to pick up on something that Andreas already said, a crisis really demands a quick adaptation to a new normal and also accelerates that need for new solutions. So therefore, it allows innovators to create quick and impactful changes. So some tangible examples are that employees now work remotely, more and more happens online, and the use of contact payment methods is really a big need. So these changing habits create new opportunities for innovators, but also insurance products will need to be adapted.
Great. So great to hear that you're focusing on opportunities, right? And not just the issues. So that's what I wanted to hear. And so thank you very much for your time. And I just wanted to ask each of you, what's the best way to reach out and to find out more about what you do?
Yeah.
Let's start with Gerrit. I guess that's the most obvious, right?
Yes. So I mean, definitely reach out. Either like with some general inquiries, like which we then can like direct to the right people via info@f10.global. Happy to point you, even like if it's like to our startups or alumni.
And Els and Sabrina?
It's always easy to contact us on LinkedIn. So if you have a specific question, don't hesitate. Just send us a message.
Yeah.
All right. I put your links in the show notes. And Andreas?
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, so I'm always very happy to connect with you, everyone on LinkedIn. Hopefully via a preferable warm intro, or you can also send an email to info@stableton.com. But we also suggest that you check out our website, stableton.com, or sign up directly at marketplace.stableton.com. Just takes less than 60 seconds and it's free of charge. And then you'll be able to browse all the current and past investment opportunities, and then we can take it from there.
I already did, Andreas, so don't, I'm there. So thank you very much again, and good luck to Stableton, Hood, and F10, obviously.
Thanks a lot for having us.
Thanks so much, Rudy. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to Voice of FinTech podcast. If you haven't already, check out also voiceoffintech.com, where you will find all the episodes and additional resources related to the podcast. You can also subscribe to Voice of FinTech on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, or any other podcast app that you like. If you have any suggestions on the topics or guests, or how to make this podcast better for you, please email us at info@voiceoffintech.com. Happy to hear from you. Thank you.